Holyoke City Council President Kevin Jourdain has expressed concerns about a proposal to boost his city's economy through the cultivation of marijuana. We talked with him about that, as well as his Republican Party activism and his strong support for the new administration of President Donald Trump.
The question becomes, is this something that is really what we want to be known for? Is this the type of community we've become? Is this what is going to improve the city's image that is so inextricably already tied to drugs, that is killing people, that our reputation for people to come into the community as a place that they want to locate their children, to have good schools? It's basically going to say, we've given up. Nothing else better than this can come to Holyoke. Why would you possibly want to live here? And that's the message that the mayor is selling. It's one that I reject.
So you worry it would drive out maybe some businesses that are there and certainly wouldn't welcome new?
Well, yeah, it's going to kill the reputation of the community, which is already suffering a reputation problem. I mean, and the notion that we're going to have exporting all of this marijuana out no more than, I would say this if this was some Philip Morris that wanted to bring tobacco mills to Holyoke. This is all a net negative to society. We have to look at we can make a dollar, but be also socially responsible. We're trying to be a progressive community. The mayor totally is against this. This is a complete cop-out.
At some point down the road, not too far, the state will act to allow the legal sales of marijuana, whatever Holyoke does or doesn't decide about growing. Forgive me if I've missed any news release or things you've said, but where do you stand on that? Are you prepared to have some smoke shops or marijuana shops in Holyoke, or is that a different question?
Yeah, as minimal as possible. The good news is the mayor has really no say in any of all of this. This is all governed by the city council. We set all the zoning rules and the regulations, and I have already filed legislation for our community to have it as restrictive as possible. It's my understanding that absent a vote of the public, we can't totally ban it, but we're also looking at entertaining that idea. I'm thinking that perhaps we would have it, if we have one medical marijuana facility in the city, maybe we have one facility. But this notion, and we have one maybe growing facility as a possibility. But this notion that we're going to line every mill in downtown Holyoke as marijuana dispensaries, marijuana growing facilities, come here with all kinds of retail shops and smoke shops for marijuana, no, certainly not with my support.
All right, so let's get you where your Republican Party Donald Trump hat now.
Yes.
National politics. You are and have been a strong supporter of Mr. Trump. Just to put it in perspective for folks at home, little lag time between when we're talking and when this is broadcast. Right. Less than a week since the inauguration now. What's your sense as a supporter of the start that the president's off to?
Well, he's out of the gate really, really fast. I think the first thing that we're seeing is he's basically turned the President Obama's agenda basically into beach sand, and now we've seen the water come up and just wash it completely away. The former president really only had one hallmark piece of legislation that he ever got adopted when the Democrats control Congress. That's Obamacare. Now that the Republicans are in control of all the branches of government, I think you will see that repealed and replaced. As it respects to all the other executive orders, I think you're going to see over the next couple of weeks a complete disassemblement of probably 90% of what President Obama put in as executive actions. And now on the rest of it, President Trump is going to make good on all the promises that he made to the American people, which is border security, having trade deals that benefit American workers, high quality education, protecting your constitutional rights on a number of different factors, including the Second Amendment. You're going to see this all lay out. And I think it's really an interesting total paradigm of the old politics of Democrat and Republican is a lot out the window. When you see President Trump sitting with all the great union leaders of the United States, and they have nothing but high praise for President Trump, I think it's just a whole new day in American politics.
One of the things that has concerned people in the campaign, and now it seems to have carried over a little bit, it almost seems like he's still in campaign mode, and maybe this is just someone who's new to the political world, yeah. But his first full day in office, Saturday, January 21st, he goes to the CIA and basically says, hey, I support you. Gives a little bit of a strange speech, if you will. I'm going to give you so much backing. You're going to say, hey, too much backing. When he gets without a script, he goes in some interesting places, then talks about his uncle being a professor at MIT and how he's a smart guy, and then starts being upset that the media said he didn't have as big a crowd as Barack Obama later that day has his press secretary come out and really kind of harangue the press about that. And, you know, because he had said all week, Mr. Trump, I'm going to have the biggest crowds ever. Okay, folks put up pictures of 2009 and 2013. And it seems pretty clear that at about the same time of days, 8 years apart, there was a significantly smaller crowd lined up at least in the same spot for Mr. Trump. What do you as a supporter make of that?
Well, first of all, I was at the inauguration, so I enjoyed that experience, and it was a massive crowd. There's no question about it. If you look at the physical presence, I don't think I would, and I looked at the photos, it seems President Obama clearly had more people. Now, the president later goes on to nuance it, and if you look to his press secretary, Mr. Spicer, what they're saying is attended is defined somewhat differently. They're saying through social media, through all the different hits, through all the people that were watching, all these different avenues, they're saying more people witnessed this inauguration than the one in 2009. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea to know. But to me, the whole thing is all trivial. I think it's all who cares? Who had an extra 200,000 people versus this one? I think the thing that really matters at this point is, you know, the issues that we need to be focused on to rebuild this country, the infrastructure improvements that need to be made, lifting our economy, giving people real jobs and opportunity.
I think most folks would agree with you. Who came to the inaugural and how many is pretty trivial. Yeah. The concern is, one, why does the White House seem to be so worried about it? Yeah. And beyond that, let me just ask you, it strikes me, here you are, granted you run at the nonpartisan level, right, but still, everybody knows you're an active Republican. It's
absolutely.
No secret.
Yeah, right.
And you are elected president of the city council in one of the most democratic cities in one of the bluest states in this nation. It seems to me you're a guy that could give some advice about reaching across the political aisle, and it seems that's advice perhaps Mr. Trump needs. He has the leaders of Congress in, including the Democrats, and one of the things they said he talked 10 minutes about is, hey, there were a lot of illegal voters, nobody can prove this, and that's why I didn't win the popular vote. He needs some advice, it seems. Yeah,
no, I think you absolutely need to reach out to the Democratic Party. I think a lot of Democrats supported him. A lot of people that were independent supported him. He wouldn't have been elected without them. I think it's exactly people like Congressman Neal that represents our district, who does a great job, by the way. I'm a Republican, but I'm a big fan of Congressman Neal. I think he does a great job for this district and our country. And those are the type of folks who are pretty, middle of the road folks who I think, I would advise the president and certainly his team to work with the Congressman Neals to build a coalition to get things done for this country. We need to put this bitter partisanship apart. But at the same time, I think you get this reaction somewhat to defend yourself constantly because, look, at the next day after the inauguration, they're out there. You got Madonna saying, I wish I could bomb the White House. You've got other people that are just making over-the-top ridiculous statements. Like, I'm no President Obama fan, never was. But, I didn't go marching around the streets saying he's not my president. I just say, hey, that's who the American people elected, and we take it to the next election. So, and yes, President Trump is clearly a character, no question about it. He's got a strong personality that seems to work for him. Some people find it charming, some people find it offensive, some people are like, it comes with the package. I try to look through a lot of those things because no politician are you going to always agree both on their substance and their style. And in this great two-party system that we have, we both know you have to compromise a bit on some of these things when you only have two candidates to pick from.
Kevin Jourdain, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
A real pleasure, Jim. Always good to see you.